Yeah, 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 yeah. Don't get it twisted. This rap game is mine, and it's not a fucking game. Fuck what you heard. It's what you hearing. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. X gon'
Hi, good afternoon. How the devil are you? I'm very unwell. Yay. I thought I'd just address this narrative of left-wing women. I know it's terrible. And what I'm going to say about left-wing women is I actually think they destroyed some of this fight, and it's why we're where we are. Because if they'd done what I said, we would be much further on. And what I said, as noted by this podcast that I'm going to play you some of, what I said all that time ago was that we should just be hardline. And I'm just so delighted that Bindel in this clip, Julie Bindel, she's a journalist, writer, and she talks to Kathleen Stock, who is maybe still a professor of philosophy. She was working, you may be familiar with her, she was working at Sussex University. She got really badly bullied by students, and so she left her post. And I understand it, not everybody can deal with kind of just an onslaught like that. And she left the position, which obviously left a lot of girls with absolutely no hope. Or children generally, young people at that university. But, not like I said, I can't blame her. It must have been really difficult to leave somewhere that I think she'd worked for about 20 years. So, I mean, no malice in my comments. Anyway, they have a podcast. It's called The Lesbian Project. And I have never listened to it, but somebody mentioned that if you think I'm wonky, I am. Somebody mentioned that they'd been discussing me, so I thought it would be quite interesting to see what they were saying. And the discussion apparently is about Tim McBride, and I've got the clip here, and I'm going to tell you all what happened. You might not even be interested, but I think it's really important when somebody with a relatively large platform talks about me. I feel it's my duty to come and correct it, because these kind of lies, and not actually lies, I think is probably unfair, misrepresentations or a disordered memory. And we all have a memory attached to our emotions. And what happens when our memory is attached to our emotions is we often remember how we feel, and that sometimes guides what we remember, not necessarily the facts. So this will be interesting. I'm pretty sure I'm guilty of that as well. So before this, I did try and find some tweets about things we said at the time, but I haven't listened to this whole section. I thought we'd do that together. So this is The Lesbian Project with Kathleen Stock and Julie Bindel, and they are talking about Tim McBride. If you don't know who Tim McBride is now a senator. His name is Sarah McBride. He was good friends with the Biden son who died. He is a painful person, and with ambitions always of being a senator or a governor. And now he is one. And myself and Julia Long met him all the way back in 2019 in January, when many of you probably wouldn't have peeked who are watching this. So this is how long I've been in these particular trenches. But let's see what Julie Bindel and Kathleen Stock remember of the Sarah McBride episode. Oh, let me just... I think this will be interesting for you all. Bum, bum, bum. Here we go. Here we are. Let me just make sure you can see these wonderful women in the picture. And we'll do that so it's even better. There they are. Okay.
Center.
Let me just make sure it's up as a human, as big as I just want you to be able to hear it. Here we are. There we go, everyone. You ready?
For misgendering, as they referred to correctly, sexing.
So the two walked about Chase Strango, and they repeatedly call her he. I think they say trans man, but they say he.
A trans person. So I thought that was I think McBride, what a creep, what a two-faced.
Oh, I think that's harsh. I think that's harsh because I think that's just what politicians do. They have to find a narrative that gets them out of the hole they're in, that keeps the support as much as possible.
So this would be Kathleen Stock in her philosophy mode, which is she doesn't know anything about Tim McBride. In a minute, I'm going to tell you some things about Tim McBride. And I'm going to find myself agreeing with Julie Bindel here that he really is a creep. He's a creepiest of creeps. A really, really dangerous man, actually.
Well, I think that separate from this, probably McBride is a creep, but there we go. We don't have to all dislike the same people to the extent.
No, we definitely don't. I mean, it was interesting to me. I have no knowledge. I'm just not going to assume creepiness. Do not assume. And also this is
I'm going to assume creepiness because he's a man who larps around in women's clothes, and what we know about him is he was central to Nancy Mace, the politician, saying that men weren't allowed to use women's toilets or bathrooms, as they call them, in Capitol and around political buildings in the United States of America.
Interesting to me because one of the huge furores within turf world that I got myself into, and I think you did too, if I recall rightly, was in 2018 or 19, when I made one of the very, very, very few public pronouncements I've ever made about Posie Parker, Kellie-Jay Keen. In fact, and
that's me.
I actually have to, for the record, say that some of my pronouncements publicly on her have been positive since. But so, I'm not one of those people personally who thinks everything Posie does is wrong. I absolutely don't. But she went over with Julia Long to Washington, barged into Sarah McBride's surgery, like as in whatever they call the MP surgery type event. And because in Britain, we call it a surgery. I don't know why, because it makes it sound medical, but it isn't. Anyway, she barged in to a meeting and filmed it. And her and Julia Long were basically going, "You're a man," weren't they? I think that's what I recall.
Oh, yes, of course.
You're a man, you're a man.
Yeah, and
I was at the time, I was in the app.
Should we have a look, people? Should we have a look? I'm going to rewind it a bit, and maybe we'll watch the whole thing. So she says that Julia and I barge into a meeting that he's having, that sort of implies that he's an elected politician, and he's having a meeting with constituents, doesn't it? That's what that kind of implies. So let me just see what else they say, and then we'll go back through it, and we'll have a look at actually what happened. So I think it's really important because actually, it's a very different thing, isn't it? If I barge into something where someone's having a private meeting with constituents, like ordinary people, and he's an elected official, and I barge in and I just shout, "He's a man, he's a man," then I still don't think it should have been condemned the way it was, but I can't even find most of the tweets that were said about this, but I will endeavor to recall many of them.
Washington barged into Sarah McBride's surgery, like as in whatever they call the MP surgery type event. And because in Britain, we call it a surgery. I don't know why, because it makes it sound medical, but it isn't. Anyway, she barged in to a meeting and filmed it. And her and Julia Long were basically going, "You're a man," weren't they? I think that's what I recall.
Oh, yes, of course.
You're a man, you're a man.
Yeah, and
I was at the time, I was in the absolute eye of the storm at Sussex. I was desperately trying to say is about bigger issues than just marching up to the average trans person and saying you're a man. It's about women's rights and women's interests in, I was trying to do the kind of reasonable thing. And there were so few people in the public eye speaking about this, really, weren't there, at the time? It was like everyone was being perceived as in relation to whoever else was talking about it. It's not like now when there's a massive, much more diverse kind of range of views. So I responded badly. I was like, this is not what I think is right. She doesn't speak for me. And I think I tweeted twice, like very short, because I Twitter limits. But that came back to bite me on the arse for about 6 years. Probably still is. As in, Posie Stans went absolutely mental at me, told me that I was a capitulator, a coward, elitist, head girl, all the usual.
Yeah. I know I'd forgotten that was McBride, but I did the same. And that, yes, of course, I mean, they'll never let go of their hatred and disdain for those of us that dared to ever try to trod some kind of path that we considered to be reasonable at the time. They hadn't been involved in this terrible.
I've listened to this. I just want you to actually, before we do that, because it's this is a big discussion point in and of itself. So I think this is really good. This is where Julie Bindel basically admits that I was right all along, which is a big step. Sure. Going back, let's see.
A surgery. I don't know why. I made one of the
So Kathleen Stock says that it was a surgery that she went into with Tim McBride was there, and it was a surgery. So again, remember, it was members of the public. And I just look, I think the fact that she just said she was very stressed and she was in the eye of the storm and she remembers it this particular way, I don't think she's being malicious or dishonest. I think this probably genuinely is the way that she's retold the story in her mind, and remembers the story. So I really am not casting any aspersions. I don't think she's at all a bad actor. I think she's wrong, and has been wrong many times. But I think she tries to be quite a reasonable middle ground person, which obviously never actually works. So this is what actually happened.
We're just going to talk to Sarah McBride.
Never do a camera angle down there. It's bad news. Okay, so let me just tell you. Picture this. Julia Long and myself. And let me just say, I'd also been through quite a monumentally awful time where a woman who basically is a bit of a blogger, or had been a blogger, I don't know, many, many fonts and colors all the time. But a woman who occasionally wrote something on a blog called Hatchet. She had written a lie, a big, fat, nasty pile of lies about me, and published it just as I was leaving to go to America. So this is back in January of 2019. So bearing in mind, 2018, I've been interviewed by the police twice. I put the billboard up. I'd done all these things. And then I was going to America, and a woman called Jean, who I was sort of friendly with, said that she was diagnosed with cancer. It was terminal, and she really wanted to come on this particular trip because, in her words, she had cancer. I needed to invite her. And so when I was taking off to go on this trip, I mean, this is a very long story, but when I was taking off to go on this trip, she dropped a blog that accused me of all these terrible things that now none of it was true, but also none of it matters. Some of it was saying that I was a super fan of Tommy Robinson, which obviously 6 years on is a totally different accusation. And she was wrong then, and she's wrong now. And I think the conversation I'd ever had with her about that was that I didn't think he was treated rightly by the state, and I'd never actually seen any evidence to back up some of the accusations levied against him. So that was a conversation, but instead she just dropped this big blog, and it was to do with me being involved with the Heritage Foundation and separating herself from this, even though she was the first one to say she'd go to the Heritage Foundation. I'd never heard of them. Yada yada. Very long, complicated, whatever. But I'd got to America feeling incredibly drunk because I used to have to drink excessively to actually get on a plane. But when I got to America, I worked my arse off, like morning, noon, right up to sort of late evening, pounding the floors, talking to American politicians about the nightmare that was the Equality Act under Biden that was going through, or it might have been Obama, it might have been Trump, 2020. Yeah, so it was under Trump. So anyway, we were going to see all these different politicians to tell them to get the gender identity bit removed from the Equality Act because it was going to totally destroy what was left of women's rights. Okay, so when I'm in Capitol pounding the floors and we've got a few meetings and honestly, it's the biggest thing you've ever seen. It would be like it's about a couple of miles underneath these buildings that you walk from one office to another. And we just happened to walk by and I recognized Tim McBride, or Sarah McBride, as he calls himself. But I recognized Tim McBride and I said to the two women I was with, which was Natasha Chart and Jennifer Chavez, and I said, hey, and Kara Densky. And I said, is it legal? Will I get in trouble? Is it an arrestable offense to go and talk to this man in this room? So when we walk into the room with an unelected politician who'd just done this lobby meeting with parents who'd all done this to me because they were all transitioning their own children, even as young as 4 years old. And a Kennedy was in there, the Ginger Kennedy. And they were all in this meeting. And he was basically selling this HRC, Human Rights Campaign. That's what he was part of at that time. He wasn't an elected politician at all. And he was doing this lobby thing, lobbying the government about and also promoting the transitioning of children. And he was sort of had these cameras and well funded. Anyway, so when we walk in the room, what he's actually doing is he's looking through photographs that have been taken of him that day that he wants to use in sort of press and PR. That's what he's doing. That's when we walk in.
Excuse me, are you prepared to listen to the concerns of women about the Equality?
Oh, so not he's a man, he's a man. So we're asking him, are you prepared to listen to the concerns of women about the Equality Act?
Concerns of women about the Equality Act and about why you're okay? Yeah, so am I. I want to know why this person is advocating to remove the safety for women and girls. Why do you want to do that?
Why are you championing the rights of men to access women in women's prisons?
So that in particular, HRC, one of their first campaigns was to get an incredibly violent man who called himself a woman, who'd killed his wife, nearly decapitated her when he beat her, right? And he left her for dead, or he killed her right at that time. He left her somewhere and he went home and he had dinner with their son, 6-year-old or whatever, dinner with their son as if nothing had happened. And that incredibly violent man is one of the first campaigns that the HRC had done to do with men pretending to be women and getting that particular violent man into a woman's prison.
And rape and sexually assault them, as has recently happened in the United Kingdom.
Why don't you care about lesbian girls at 14 having double mastectomies? Why don't you care about that, Sarah? This is Sarah McBride. He gets paid probably quite a lot of money to lobby the government to try and make sure that women and girls have absolutely no right to any space anymore. Shame on you.
Sarah, yesterday I listened to mothers weeping over the fact that their daughters, teenage daughters, had had their breasts sliced off and radical hysterectomies involving removing their womb and ovaries. And
He doesn't care, look.
Would you like to speak to those mothers and tell us why you're championing an Equality Act that will ensure that a lot more of this happens to young lesbians, Sarah?
Tell the entire LGBT community how much you hate lesbians, Sarah.
Well, I don't know that Sarah does.
See, look.
I think Sarah just did that already in the interview outside. We hear you very clearly, Sarah. We hear your hatred of lesbians very clearly.
There. So I think that's quite different to just walking in a surgery saying, he's a man, he's a man, he's a man. I think it's a stark contrast, actually. So I just wanted to correct that. So we'll go back to these wonderful women. There we go. So let's see. So we'll go back to what Bindel. So It's very different, isn't it? What Kathleen remembers and what actually happened are two very, very different things. But like I said, I am not casting aspersions here. I don't think that's on purpose. I think that just is the fault of one's memory.
Well, I think that separate from this, probably McBride.
And
And
I was at the time, I was in the absolute eye of the storm at Sussex. You know, I was desperately trying to say, like, very short, because I'm at Twitter limits, but that came back to bite me on the arse for about 6 years. Probably still is. As in, Posie Stans went absolutely mental at me, told me that I was a capitulator, a coward, elitist head girl, you know.
So what Kathleen actually said, in amongst the noise from all of the socialist feminists, Julie Bindel, there was a woman called Rosa Friedman who she was a professor of criminology, and she said that what we did was criminal or borderline criminal. All of the head girls, so all of the left-wing women, Bindel, Stock included, who's that woman who doesn't work? A professor called someone Jones, Sarah Ditum, who's a journalist, probably Karen Ingala Smith. All of them were tweeting that Kathleen Stock said that Julia and I had pushed feminism back by 10 years. Like, that's not a little bit of a, I don't like that. That's a proper scathing attack of something that didn't happen, for a start. But that's what she said. Over the years, I have been, this is why I think left-wing feminists, I don't even know if Kathleen is left-wing anymore. She seems too intelligent, to be honest. But I've been called like a Nazi. Julie Bindel accused me of taking money from the Heritage Foundation. On that same trip, Julie Bindel started saying that I was far right, and where was that picture of myself and Tommy Robinson? She was sure that I'd met him, or sure that I had a profile picture with him in it. Just countless things. And then I replied that I thought she might have been at some sort of Nazi rally, which is obviously a joke because she hadn't been alive at the time. But what these women did at a time where I'd simply asked a very powerful and influential man some questions, all of those women seemed to have like this little united front of condemning me in the strongest of terms. Beatrix Campbell, I think, was another one. They all condemned my actions as if I'd done something absolutely terrible. That's why people defended me so vociferously, because the attack, the united attack, using very similar language and all of these things, with everyone talking about me, it was like huge, it was massive. It was ferocious. It was never-ending, ferocious, nasty attacks. And this had come on the back of Women's Place UK attacking me, Hatchet attacking me, and now all these women. So I was a very, very attacked woman at that time, and often unable to respond, because once you respond, people think it's infighting as opposed to just like attacks. And that's what started the bad blood between me and all of them. And that's because they just couldn't leave me alone. What they kept doing is massively attacking me publicly, and calling me names that now they all get upset about. I think there was some sort of something in the Herald this week where everyone is saying, oh, they call us Nazis. I'm like, yeah, that's what you guys did before the TRAs were saying Nazi. Many women on my side were calling me a Nazi. Like, these women, not Stock, but many of these women that are now claiming, like, I can't believe anyone calls us a Nazi. They were the ones that called other women Nazis. And then it got used against them. And then they're like, oh, I don't really know how that happened. Well, you started it, ladies. In many, many cases, you started it. You certainly gave it credibility. If it wasn't you that spewed the first Nazi. Anyway, let's carry on with these two lovely women.
All the usual.
Yeah. I know I'd forgotten that was McBride, but I did the same. And that, yes, of course, I mean, they'll never let go of their hatred and disdain for those of us that dared to ever try to trod some kind of path that we considered to be reasonable at the time. They hadn't been involved in this terrible battle at a time when it was possible to speak with trans people and try and find a way forward.
Appeased, you mean, Julie? You mean the time that you were trying to appease? That's what you mean. That's what you mean. That's why people are so angry with you. That's what that means. People are angry that whilst they were being cancelled off Twitter, you were trying to appease and having these conversations with men LARPing as women about them taking our rights. Like that's the very bit that people are annoyed about. That some of us, by saying do it to Julia, which is essentially what you all did that day, when Julia Long and I both tackled a man head on who had a huge influence over these policies, you all said, we're not like them. We're not like them. I want to distance myself. That's nothing to do with me. Like asking a powerful man some questions, that's nothing to do with me. I don't want anything to do with that woman. Do it to Julia. That's essentially why everybody got pissed off with you. Oh, just accidentally.
That was a really good moment. Anyway, this person said, how the hell do we rein in the extremists?
Hang on.
Moment in relation to
Wider movement.
how will you cope?
Anyway, we met. I know it's going to be terrible.
Was incredibly vitriolic. Plus, of course, petition you have to move at the right moment.
Hang on.
So you have to pick your moment in relation because trans people are so sort of so hot, as it were.
About 5 years ago, I met with someone who
I'm so sorry, people. Let me just
are
find
now turning away from the extremists.
Side as you, so to speak. And in fact, since then, I'm now fallen out with. That'll be coming out. That'll just put felt a lot more intense at the time because there were so few of us, like I say, and it was like we were supposed to stick together. It's about each of us, isn't she? She's not every Posie stan, obviously.
No. Well, it couldn't.
But there's a few that just
speak with trans people and try and find a way forward. And it was a waste of time, and I regret doing it now.
Yeah, and we all knew it. Let me just take you back. I'm so sorry. I've really messed up here. But let me just take you back to the whole of this thought. And let me tell you why. And I'm going to say it. I don't want to be too boastful, but I was right all along. Right? Those of us that held the line, that said, don't do this, don't sell us out, don't try and bridge this. There's no bridging. There's no bridging a gap between men that want to steal from us and keeping our property, right? Keeping our rights. There's no gap. There's no bridge. There's nothing you can do about that. The only thing you can do is say, no, why don't you fuck off? You're not having our rights. You're not having our language. You can't have any of this. None of this belongs to you. It belongs to us. You're not having any of it. That's the only thing that would have ever worked. And I'm glad that Julie acknowledges that what she was doing was a total waste of time.
This terrible battle at a time when it was possible to speak with trans people and try and find a way forward.
She says there, right, bearing in mind the rest of her sentence in a minute. Let's hear the rest of her sentence. We'll go back.
And it was a waste of time, and I regret doing it now. But oh my God, are they nasty, cruel? Haven't been involved in this terrible battle at a time when it was possible to speak with trans people and try and find a way forward. And
what way forward is that? Really? What way forward is that? There's no way forward. Someone wants to take your rights. You don't want to give them away. What's the way forward? Well, we could speak to them. Oh, yeah, and say what? Do it to Julia. Because I think that's how this comes across, isn't it? We were, we were looking after ourselves. We were having these nice conversations. Oh, and what was happening to the rest of the women? They were getting criminalized. Yeah, getting cancelled off Twitter, getting cancelled from all their speaking posts, being attacked in the streets. But we were having nice conversations with men in dresses about a way forward. Oh, and what did that do for those men? Well, it secured those men, didn't it? Yes, it secured those men as like a sacred caste. And those men could kind of, if they chop their dick off, then they could use women's spaces. Is that a way forward? Because I don't really understand what this way forward is that she's talking about. But I do know that that's why people got really pissed off, because there were lots of women, elitist women, living in nice houses in nice parts of London, having conversations when some of us were getting cancelled left, right, and centre, right? Having these comfortable conversations where they were saying that those women over there are extreme. We're not like that. We'll sit down and have, break bread with you, and we'll try and find a middle ground. Well, there is no middle ground.
It was a waste of time, and I regret doing it now.
Yeah, which we all knew, Julie. Like those of us that were saying that you were wrong to do that, and you were doing the do it to Julia. You were making us all look like extreme kind of nutcases. We were trying, that's why everybody was so angry. Because what you were trying to do is you were trying to make out that there are good TERFs, good women who are like all just reasonable and nice, and we just want women's rights, and then bad women who want women's rights. And and I think you've even called me a transphobe. That's why everyone was angry, because you didn't hold the line. But you kept claiming that you were holding the line, even though you told Paris Lees that you consider men lesbians. Like, you didn't even hold the line. That's not even true. And people have the audacity to sort of say, oh, she was. I think Kathleen Stock wrote an article saying Julie was leading the fight. She wasn't. Hasn't ever.
Of us that dared to ever try to trod some kind of path that we considered to be reasonable at the time. They hadn't been involved in this terrible battle at a time when it was possible to speak with trans people.
Yeah, and give away our rights. And try and have a rational conversation with someone who is a despicable misogynist who wants to steal our rights.
And try and find a way forward. And it was a waste of time, and I regret doing it now. But oh my God, are they nasty, cruel, horrible? Some of them bullies about.
Nasty, horrible bullies. This is from the woman who said that I took, did she say Nazi gold from the Heritage Foundation? I think she said that. I think she called me a transphobe. I think she's accused me of so much. I think her and her ilk have said that they'd rather stand next to dog shit than me. What else have they said? That I'm a pan shop, Marine Le Pen. God, so many things. So many things. Oh, if I do that one more time, I'm going to kick somebody in the head.
And find a way forward. And it was a waste of time, and I regret doing it now. But oh my God, are they nasty, cruel, horrible? Some of them bullies about it.
Not every Posie stan, obviously.
No, well, it couldn't.
But there's a few that just.
There's a group.
Well, it was a few for whom it was quite clear that it was like the tip of a very large iceberg of resentment and hatred that all came out. And it was felt a lot more intense at the time because there were so few of us, like I say, and it was like we were supposed to stick together. And obviously, I suppose I hadn't.
No, what you all did, and I remember it acutely. What you all did while I made that comment to Sarah McBride and while I listened to mothers. So I'd already had that massive attack where I'd spent blood, sweat, and tears. I'd raised enough money to send T-shirts all over the UK, so women were going to do statues. If you don't know about this, I'd raised all this money, and people sort of talk about money, but the reason that Let Women Speak has ever been able to do anything is because I work my arse off, and I print the t-shirts. I didn't always print the t-shirts, but I print the t-shirts. I sell the t-shirts. I design the t-shirts. I do the website. You know, I do all of it. I couldn't do it without Laura and Iris and Mary. I couldn't do the live events in particular without those women. But most of this stuff that you see, I do. It's because of me. And so my blood, sweat, and tears that I poured into this thing, giving up family time and so on, and afforded myself and a couple of others to go over to the United States of America. What happened is that you all shit on it, all of you. So that the first thing had already been ruined because everyone was accusing me of being far right because of Hatchet's Hatchet job, and then the rest of them finished it off, and they all kind of circled. It was all like, she's the worst person. She's a terrible person. Look at that awful, awful woman. We're not anything like that. And they'd all done that to me. And people didn't like it very much because it was nasty, vicious bullying. That's what it was. It was bullying. I never felt like a victim. I felt like they tried to make me a victim. They tried to shut me up. They tried to cancel me. They tried to make everybody hate me. And it kind of, in the beginning, when everybody kept doing that, 50% of the response was, yes, I must be a terrible, terrible, evil, racist, Islamophobic Nazi, which is what, if you read back Twitter back at that time, that was the sort of things they were saying about me, bearing in mind I was banned from Twitter at that time.
I had betrayed the cause in public. Anyway, Posie's made up for it since. She's done about 10 videos about each of us, hasn't she? She's
haven't actually done. The only things I've ever done, Kathleen, in my defense, is responses. I've sometimes responded maybe to some of the positions that some of you women have taken, which I think are weak and wrong. So I definitely would have commented on that. But for the most part, I'm commenting when all of those women come out to say something pretty vile about me. And so I take issue with this idea that I've done about 10 videos. I haven't. I've just responded to things that people have said about me, and I think that's my right.
Her and Julie Long did a whole video on my book where they said it was a piece of shit.
I never said it was a piece of shit. I've never read your book. I'm sure it's very good. I'm sure it sold many copies. But I think you did say something pretty damning about Julia Long, and she wanted an opportunity to respond. So that's what that podcast was about.
And threw it away or something. So
I haven't read it. Actually,
they
said
hadn't
in the
read
video,
it.
they hadn't read it.
Piece of shit. Yeah, so I think basically what I'm saying is we're even now.
Well, you started it, and now you just said this. I don't feel that there's even or one side or whatever. I just think the truth speaks for itself. And that is that you women as a collective decided a really long time ago that I was a terrible person and you wanted nothing to do with me. And I was both middle class, but to be scorned at, like I was working class. All these horrible things said about me, just repeated in your little groups. So that's where that comes from. It doesn't come from me, because I wouldn't have started anything with a woman being bullied by students at a university. I wouldn't have started anything with you had you not said anything to me. And, you know, Bindel, from calling me a boring middle class breeder, really early on in this fight. Otherwise, I would have admired Julie Bindel. I think she's done some incredible work. I think that the things that she's done for women in prison is remarkable. I just think it's a shame that she decided to treat me as a bit of a do it to Julia. I think it's pretty rank.
We don't have to relitigate that whole very ancient history, although I just did.
Oh, we really went. Well, I did. I was a guest on Blocked and Reported, the podcast with Katie Herzog and Jessie Single the other day.
Yeah.
And we talked about the split, the division within the so-called TERF movement. So that was fun. But we'll
That'll be coming out. That'll just put another bomb under it just to get things going.
Because the thing is, it's quite reassuring that because they've never left me alone and they keep on and on and on making videos about what a terrible person I am, I've got nothing to lose.
See, that's just not true. If you don't talk about me, Miss Bindel, I don't talk about you. You don't come across my radar very much because I don't have very much in common anymore. Well, or never did really. I think right from the off, I think you were always doing the thing that you said, which is trying to find a way forward with blokes LARPing as women. So, I mean, I think that's the essence of. I'll tell you what it is, Julie. Not that you're asking, but I'm going to tell you anyway, and I'm going to tell everyone else. You let women down. I mean, maybe they were wrong to ever put any faith in your strong position, that you would actually stand with women against LARPers, against these men in their fetish gear. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe women were just wrong to expect that from you, so they get hurt. And it happens to me that women make up in their head what they think you are, and then when you don't live up to that, they get really pissed off. So I think that's what it is. You sort of talk, you're a bit Jess Phillipsy. You talk this really good fight and everyone believes you. And then when it comes down to it, you let everybody down. But maybe maybe women are just wrong to expect that much from you. To expect anything consistent, to expect that ultimately you are pro-women against men LARPing as women. And I guess the Debbie Hayton interview you did probably pissed everybody off, but that's because they haven't listened to how you've behaved over the last 6 years, which is you have always included men LARPing as women as people that you want to impress or remain friends with, and sort of have connections with. And I think women mistakenly thought that they would be a priority over those men, and they're not. And so that's why it gets personal and vitriolic for some women, because they feel that you've personally let them down. That's the upshot of it. And I think once you accept that, you can accept that the reason women are atting you in things and saying things about you is because they were hoping so much more from you when it came to sort of solidarity with women on this particular issue. And every time you just disappoint them because you don't want to offend men LARPing as women. Ultimately, you don't want to offend men LARPing as women. You don't want to say the very, very kind of the actual truth. You want to rebrand something and call it the truth, but it's not true. So that's where the difference is. I mean, most people outside of this debate don't know who you are. It's mostly women inside this debate who already looked up to you because of the amazing things you've done for women. So they just thought an extension of that would be that you would be really, really strong on this. And I guess you haven't been.
I may as well speak my mind.
Well, yeah, you can speak your mind. I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter anymore because almost everybody in the UK is a TERF, as it were, but it's sort of generic. And it's perfectly okay and always was for there to be differences of opinion amongst people who believe in biological reality.
Yeah, differences of opinion don't really include calling just outright lies and calling people names, which is what happened to me by the likes of you two and the set of women that everyone assumed you were sort of in some sort of sourdough WhatsApp group with. And I mean every last one of them who's done this kind of do it to Julia distance from me, who's always been right.
And what it means. And it's perfectly okay to dislike other people in the same side as you, so to speak. And in fact, since then, I'm now fallen out with loads of other people. Some of them who also Posie hates.
Yes. And that's because, Kathleen, you're totally right about abortion and assisted dying. Totally Totally right about that. You're wrong about birth certificates and children's right to a correct birth certificate, but you are totally right about those two things.
It's interesting the way that some of the trans activists and those with a lot of capital, those with a lot of power within their own movement, are now turning away from the extremists. They are denouncing the tactics and recognizing that they have shot themselves in the foot, but didn't ever openly condemn the troops at the time.
I thought that. But I mean, why? The thing is, as a politician, you have to move at the right moment, don't you? Mood. And the public
is considered to be a trans elder. So someone who was pivotal in bringing...
So Julie Bindel is talking about having a chat with a trans elder.
Through the Gender Recognition Act. I mean, this is going to get me cancelled by everybody that hasn't yet cancelled me within our wider...
So I think she might be talking about Stephen Whittle, who is a horrible woman, who is a woman who brought through the Gender Recognition Act, who is a woman who, in a party, said to somebody else who confided in me that Stephen Whittle wished she had known it was always okay to be a lesbian. And instead she pretends to be a man.
How will you cope?
Anyway, we met. I know it's going to be terrible, but we met and talked about, will this war ever end? We've been friendly on and off over the years. I debated this person a couple of times publicly. Anyway, let's just refer to this person as what? I don't know. How can we refer to Leslie? Leslie said, that's not their real name.
This is a bit like that bit in The Usual Suspects where you, verbal kid or whatever his name looks around the room and sees a mug that says Leslie and says, Leslie.
Yes, that was that was a really good moment. Anyway, this person said, how the hell do we rein in the extremists in both of our movements? And I was saying, and I believed it then and I believe it now, there are nowhere near as many extremists. And
what's a fucking extremist on the women's side? I extremely don't want men in women's spaces. Is that what we're on about? I really, really don't want them.
The ones that we do have are nowhere near as vicious as the ones on your side.
Yeah, I mean, extremist is just relative to where the middle ground is. So
exactly. Yeah. But I did say that I agreed that it was not good for the optics, that there were some that were screaming pervert and paedophile and you're a man in public when actually we were supposed to be just having a discussion about women's rights to transfer.
Yeah, the reason I'm laughing is because I recall your Daily Mail article that got nixed only last week. Parade of perverts.
I know, but sometimes you just have to.
Oh, okay. So another time where we just realise that Julie's a bit of a hypocrite. But that's fine because many of us are, just not quite so publicly and not found out by our mates on a podcast.
To bring out that word sometimes is perfect.
Yes.
Like nonsense.
Basically, when somebody else does it, bad optics. When I do it, truth.
Well, there's something to be said for that. Speaking of which, our next item.
Oh, there you go. So I thought I'd just address that. I think it's important. I think it's important that we understand that what actually happened. I don't know how many of you listen to the lesbian podcast or watch the lesbian podcast. It looks nice. It looks like a nice chat. I think Kathleen's insights are worth listening to. She's obviously a very mild-mannered woman. And I also think Julie Bindel at times can be entertaining. So that's a Lesbian Project podcast if you're looking to tune in. But they weren't so familiar with the facts when it came to me. And I just wanted everyone to understand I'm right. I was always right. I'm right today. I was right back then. Leah Keith says it was so much fun hosting you, Julia, for that week. Thanks for your bravery and good spirits. Well, it was fantastic. I was so unwell. In fact, I'm quite unwell right now. What happens to me when I get unwell, especially if I do long haul flights, is I end up getting a chest infection. I remember being so ill. Staying in that house in Washington. It was the first time I'd met Leah and some of the incredible women who've been fighting the good fight since 2016 in the United States of America. And Leah, I know, has been doing it way longer than that. But there was I think it was the Obama presidency, saw some women really come together. Look, I want to say this. In the United Kingdom, I genuinely believe the women who call themselves left-wing really hampered the efforts of women trying to get this talked about. And the reason it took, there was a foothold, and some of these left-wing women are like, I was doing this in 2012, I did it in 2010. Yeah, really badly. You could never actually connect with people who wanted to hear what you had to say. So it doesn't really matter what you were saying. Nobody was listening. So it was rubbish. That's what was happening in the United Kingdom. You had to find different strategies, and I'm afraid to say I think I did that. But I've always come from the position, like, if you don't ask for what you really want, if you don't ask for the whole thing, then you're always going to get something crap. And what left-wing women did is they tried to have these conversations, like Bindel just admitted. They tried to have these conversations in a left-wing way that wouldn't piss people off, which meant that we weren't having honest conversations. Like, if we've been having honest conversations since the first we ever heard about this, I don't think it would have got such a foothold. I don't think we would be where we are right now in 2025 trying to unravel some of this shit. So that's all I want to say. I'm so hot. Anyway, get one of these t-shirts. It will help me continue. And Worthing, everybody. Worthing is this weekend. The trans activists are coming, right? They really, really, really want to stop us talking in Worthing on the 30th. There's like little posters up everywhere calling me a Nazi. So yeah, do come. Anyway, if you can keep speaking the truth in a way that is relevant and chimes with the masses, then I promise we will win. If you can get yourself a nice t-shirt, pink, right, for the pink protests. If you can get yourself a nice t-shirt and help the effort to ensure that all women have a voice, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Well, because I never lose.